Hey, it's Dave Brown here, host of Now with Dave Brown on AMI. Check out this latest highlight from the show.
On a day like Valentine's Day, you may find yourself thinking about where dating and accessibility actually intersect. And more people are connecting on dating apps like Tinder and Bumble and Hinge. But how accessible are those apps? Accessibility consultant Marco Pasqua is here with us this morning and has more on that. Good morning, Marco.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
Not too bad. I'm surrounded by red. I'm feeling the love today. It's Valentine's Day, so I thought this would be a perfect topic to dive into.
I couldn't agree more with you. I think it's a great angle to look at Valentine's Day and a great lens to use to talk more about Valentine's Day and accessibility. And let's dig in a little bit on into these apps because they really are so much more common. You see them advertised left, right, and center on television, on social media. Have there been a lot of expressions of concern when it comes to the accessibility of these apps?
Yeah, actually, in researching for this show, I actually found online there was a study that was done by Arizona State University called Improving the Accessibility for Mobile Dating Applications for Individuals with Visual Impairments. And they found a lot of things to do with better labeling, better HTML tags, making it easier to navigate with things like screen readers, that blind users are more likely to use dating applications that have some form of text-based features embedded. And when they asked most of their surveillance, they said 7 out of 10 said that OkCupid was probably the most accessible. Tinder was mentioned by 4 respondents as being better than Bumble. So again, I'm a guy that's been out of the dating game for about 15, 16 years. I'm happily married with a child, but this is just fascinating to me as a guy who loves technology.
Well, I've been out of the game for more than 30 years, so twice as long as you. So I don't really have familiarity with these apps. But Dave Brown, of course, who is the host of the show, is not here today in person. But he did want to share some thoughts and some insight a little bit into accessibility shortcomings in the design of these apps. So here's a clip from Dave.
Hey, Marco. Hey, Mike. I don't know about the accessibility per se in these dating apps in terms of a strict digital disability and accessibility component, but I will say so many of the apps use a ton of animations or little dongles or little buttons inside the app that sometimes it can be really difficult to understand what you're doing exactly. And the stakes are pretty high because you don't want to be swiping right or left or hitting the wrong button and sending mixed signals on one of these dating apps. So that's what strikes me about one of my concerns about accessibility inside these dating apps.
So we're going to get a couple of more clips from Dave. But on that one, what do you think of that thought, Marco? The fact that the animations and the buttons may visually be very pretty and attractive, but can also make the user experience a little bit different, a little bit odd.
That's right. And this is the thing that happens with websites too, right? We've been working really hard to make sure that the web content accessibility guidelines are, followed out there, and more sites are seeing that now. But why can't we have that same, standard applied to the dating game, right? And I think that it is really important. A lot of people are very visually driven when it comes to first dates, out there. And so I think about my friends, who have low vision or who are visually impaired, and I think to myself, there's got to be a better way here because, there's a lot of things out there where we're basing really learning more about somebody just based off of a profile. We have to be able to really understand that we all navigate the world in different ways, and that includes digitally as well. So I think Dave hit it on the money.
Dave recorded another thought about how it can be tricky to self-identify when it comes to dating and accessibility or disability. So let's play that clip.
This thought may not necessarily be about the accessibility of the app, but where disability fits into dating. Disclosing disability in the dating process is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world because you never know how somebody's going to react to it. We want people to have an open mind, but there's no assurances that they will. One of the works and hacks that I've figured out on this front is I actually put right somewhere in my online dating description that I'm an albino. I don't get into much more details than the fact that I'm an albino, but if they're at all interested or it's a concern for them, it's right there. It's self-identified. They can figure it out, and I tell them you can ask me questions about that along the way.
So that's not so much a question of design, Marco, but you know,
Sure.
any thought about self-identification and where that may intersect with dating?
100%. I used to be very bashful when I was in the dating game about opening up about my cerebral palsy. I didn't want to be judged for having a wheelchair or using a wheelchair to get around. As I got older, though, I really realized that it's so much better to just be upfront about who you are and what's going on out there for you, simply because you're going to automatically filter out the people that aren't really worth your time, right? And so I think that it's an individual choice for self-identification, but I actually would apt to tell people, go out there and be yourself. That's how you're going to land the person that is right for you. I mean, the whole goal with these applications isn't necessarily just for a hookup. You want to actually find somebody that you can care about. And I think that the best way to do that is through authenticity.
Now, you, along those lines, you also found a service that specifically tries to connect people with disabilities for dating purposes. So what's it called and how does it work?
So there's a couple of them out there. There's just a few websites called Glimmer, Disability Matching, Prescription for the number 4 Love, and Dating the number 4 Disabled. And I just think it's so interesting that we feel as though we have to segment ourselves in this way. I understand why the community exists, because people have felt burned on maybe your traditional websites that are out there. And I think that there is a place for it for certain individuals if they choose to have that. But I really would advocate that we all come together and recognize that we're unique, individual, and amazing people. And regardless of any form of disability, that shouldn't make you feel bashful to go onto any platform and share with the world who you are.
Dave also had another thought here, and specifically on this type of service.
In terms of dating within the disability community, or kind of being told that your pure dating pool should be within the disability community as a person with a disability, obviously there's a ghettoization there. There's obviously something problematic at its nature. And I will say this as just a human that kind of contrasts that a bit. Well, I'm legally blind. I can't drive. I live in a city like Toronto where cars are definitely useful and being able to drive is useful. And I did date a woman last summer who had a car. And let me just say, that was an eye-opening, freedom-loving experience. So as much as I want to say, you know, love is love, you should fall for who you fall for. And even if it is problematic to say there's a ghettoization of saying people with disabilities should only date those who are also disabled because of a shared experience or lived experience, I'm telling you, as someone who's legally blind, it's really nice to be able to combine dating and having a chauffeur.
Wow.
It's funny. So I have no vision loss, but when I started dating my wife, I did not have a driver's license. She did. So I know that feeling of having a chauffeur and having somebody who had access to wheels, which was nice. But okay, what do you think about a service that aims to connect daters with disabilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a really great thing. I honestly think that, you know, there's a slew of them out there, obviously, now, and that those weren't available when I was a bit younger. And so absolutely, that community is there. But as Dave said in his clip, I honestly think, like, it doesn't matter if you have a disability or not. My wife, for example, doesn't have a disability. She's able-bodied, and that never really stopped us. Yeah, about 10, 15 years ago, we certainly would get a lot of looks, okay? People would assume that she was my care aide. People would assume that she was my sister when we were out at bars. Oh, hey, don't I know your brother from high school? I don't have a brother. No, the guy next to you. No, that's my boyfriend. You know what I mean? So it's a very strange situation, but I can tell you, in 2022, not only do we not get those looks anymore where they assume, oh, she's my helper, they actually give me looks of admiration when we're walking down the street, because they now see myself pushing my daughter in her stroller and my wife next to me, and they can tell immediately that we're a happy family. So I think the world has come a long way, and I think I want to encourage the listeners and the viewers out there, just be yourself and go and try different communities and see which ones stick for you. It's going to be different for everybody.
Marco Pasqua, accessibility consultant, here with us on Now with Dave Brown.
Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI TV, or download the podcasts wherever you listen. Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen.